Many a year passed since the last warbands of foolhardy souls dared to enter the city of the damned. Sullen and silent it has been since the time of the squirrel mages, deadly witch hunter marksmen, and cavorting merchant caravans, till now.
This fall, I'll be taking part in Mordheim campaign with the local crew. The homies, Rory and Spooky, have created a pretty incredible campaign for us. After all the work they've put in, I felt like I needed to create a new warband, complete with some lore. Now I've been putting together and painting some wood elves to play regiments from one-page rules. So I really wanted to play some wood elves in the City of the Damned. Of course, the only wood elf specific warband is a little too experimental and, well, broken for our campaign. So a reskin of the Shadow Warriors was in order. In putting the crew together, I landed on 8 characters. A Shadow Master leader with an elven bow, 3 Shadow Walkers with long bows, a Shadow Weaver mage, and 3 Shadow Warriors with swords and shields. I've been using this elf light infantry kit from Oathmark to build some of my regiment's force, and thought this kit would work great here. Beginning with the mage, this standard bearer arm felt like it could be turned into something a little more interesting. This scythe seemed like it would fit the bill. I hacked it out of the sprue, then scraped the actual scythe off. I figured I could turn this into some sort of magical staff with a power stone on the end. Then found a head that looked like an angry old man, fitting for a mage fighting their way through this evil place. Leaning into the idea of these ladies hunting from the shadows, all of the bow-wielding Shadow Walkers would use hooded heads with covered faces, distinct assassin vibes. The shield-bearing fighters were less shady, still wearing hoods, but without the facial coverings. I knew I wanted something different for the leader, more grandiose maybe. Something that screamed leader. Of course, I wasn't sure what that would be. Rather than getting bogged down, I began hosing down the minis I did have. Now, Mordheim is a particularly grim, dark setting, which for me means bright, vibrant colors. As in my last video, I started with a rich, dark purple, then went over it with a heavy zenithal of deep magenta. I knew I wanted these elves to have very vibrant green cloaks, and magenta shadows would be the perfect counterpoint. Dark yet richly colored shadows, and vibrant highlights. Not what you'd normally see in a grimdark setting, but the fun way for me. As I was putting some of the finishing touches on this grouchy, old, yelling at kids to get off his lawn mage, I realized that I had the perfect leader model, built and ready to go. Cursed City is the source of some of the very best sculpts Games Workshop has released, and this hero is perhaps the best wood elf they have ever produced. Of course, this round base was not going to do. With the warband now assembled, I went back to painting. First spraying down our fearless leader to match the rest of the group. Then grabbing a brush and starting to slap some paint on that leader, working from the inside out, that is, starting with areas that are the most difficult to reach. I began with her skin. This magenta is kind of the perfect starting point, adding the hint of blood flow and a more natural appearance to the flesh. I mixed some pale yellow into shadow flesh and began sketching on the volumes. Despite wanting to end in a rather pale skin tone, I like using shadow flesh, which is relatively dark. On top of this magenta underpainting, I simply add more and more pale yellow and end with a skin tone that I like. You might get tired of hearing it, but I'm not blending here, just thin, sketchy lines. On surfaces this small, you really don't need to blend, particularly for gaming pieces. Of course, do what makes you happy. Just don't feel like you need to do something because you saw it on the internet. To help bridge the gap from the purple shadows to the green cloth, I began by mixing a small amount of the magenta into Scorpy green, then started sketching on the thin lines. Building the volumes, I first worked up to pure Scorpy green. Continuing to build the highlights by mixing some moon yellow into the green. Adding this vibrant yellow into the green leads to a very bright and vibrant finish. Something that really pops against the magenta shadows.
A rumble in the deep. The land violently shakes. Nature freezes and time hesitates. Surging to the sky, a blast of green lightning courses up and up. It illuminates the countryside and shocks all who inhabit the hinterlands of Stirling and Ostermark. Peasants stare like stunned mullets at the beam. Priests pray to Sigmar or more nefarious deities, but wiser ones know. It is a sign of darker things to come. Such an anomaly could come from only one place. Mordheim.
The campaign that Andrew and Rory have put together has our warbands marching towards Mordheim in the fall, then playing in the City of the Damned during the winter campaign. So I was compelled to create some lore that explained why these elves were headed to Mordheim. Maybe this bright green flash was the awakening of some ancient evil. Something whose presence was sucking the life force out of the forest. Or maybe was sucking the life out of the trees to power itself. So Queen Elenwi, along with her daughters, their mage, and 3 swordsmen, are off to fight this evil and defeat who might stand in their way. The base of the gold on Queen Elenwi here was done with some of my favorite browns. Dark golden brown and golden brown. Adding some moon yellow, then finishing with pale yellow mixed in. I kinda suck at painting gold, but I'm not displeased with this result. I wanted to keep the magenta influence on the bases, so I grabbed the dry brush, first brushing on some flat earth, then following that up with Scorpy green, though with a lighter touch. Finally, slathering on Seraphim Sepia.
Long have I felt its presence, an evil, long dormant, forgotten by this world, has haunted my dreams. But something has happened. Its foul powers sicken the earth as it stirs. The trees are dying. Their screams of agony pierce my very soul. If nothing is done, I fear our beloved forest shall perish. And so we march into the very heart of darkness, to the city of the damned.
And here they are, the Sisters of the Everforest. Queen Elenwi, the leader of the warband, deadly accurate with her ancient elven bow. Her 3 daughters, the triplets, Aerolith, Anair, and Arawi, hiding in the shadows up high, raining arrows down on their enemies. Ictherin, the Shadow Weaver mage. He's old and cantankerous. Go ahead, try him. Finally, the 3 swordsmen, Farin, Ilaris, and Kelador. Swords and shields. They'll bravely move forward ahead of their queen, and probably die.